So let's do this. Ai, Okawi Mao, Victor Magno. Creator and Mother Earth, I ask for your guidance today. I ask that you show me how to live my life in a good way. I give you thanks for the day that you've given me today, for the lessons that I'm learning, for the stripping that you're stripping me down with, building with me and doing with me as thou wilt. I'm a willing participant. Don't always like the ripping apart and changing, but I know it's got to be that way. I ask for your guidance today as I do this last big book study. I ask for the right words and experiences and to open my heart to be able to hit other people's hearts tonight. I ask for an open mind and a new experience with you and with my fellows and friends and with your universe, this big book and this program in general. I've never been here before. Allow me to know that and feel that. Great, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here to perform this study for the 7 months or so that it's been. I thank you for all the people that have attended, and hopefully somebody's gotten a little something out of it here and there. Thank you, Creator, for the best day I've had today. Hi. Oakley dokley. So we're on the middle of page 95 and working with others. If you have any questions as we're going through here on sponsorship or being sponsored or any of the steps that we've done at some point, feel free to ask and I'll try to answer. Okay. Middle of 95. If he is not interested in your solution, if he expects you to only act as a banker for his financial difficulties, or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him till he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So in the context of that paragraph, it's mostly talking about, when you first sponsor somebody, if he's not interested in the program, if he's not interested in finding a power, if he's not interested in the big book and all the things that we do here, if he expects you to act as the banker, if he's just constantly asking you for money, asking you for rides, calling you, fucking half drunk and just doing all these things that guys do a lot, and you'll experience that. And that's the thing, as new sponsors or sponsors in their first few years, you got to put up with that. And as you get healthier in your own recovery, you have to put up with that. What it is going to do is it's going to show you the illness. It's going to show you and teach you how to navigate. Like when I talked about earlier in this step, I think last session, I talked about these guys kind of fucking with our time and learning how to build your system with about 15 sponsees, give or take, trying to figure out a system and going through a lot of trial and error with those first 15 guys. And likely none of those guys are even going to stay sober. That's not the point. The point is that you're sober. The point is, like step 10 talks about, you're growing in understanding and effectiveness. And you're learning how to navigate your own recovery, your own frustrations with these guys. You're praying and you do want the best for them. And then that next 15, so up to your 30, 15 to 30, you're really honing your system. So as we kind of are discussing that with the new guy, he might have to get hurt some more. He might have to go back out and keep burning it down. And this he may do after he gets hurt some more. He'll change his mind. And when we kind of flip this to like the defective character, where now you're sponsoring, you're many years in, or you got some experience, some of these guys will still not really do this work, and they're going to call you constantly with complaints and struggles and all these things. Maybe they stopped working at step 8 and you kept a relationship, or maybe you got them through a set of steps, but they're not practicing step 10, 11, and 12. They're still going to come to you, and they're going to want you to fucking help them all the time. So you're putting your work on the service plane. They're relying on you instead of God. And they're not going into their defects and they're not relinquishing them. And you can nurse their sprees, meaning you're catering to their defects. You're fucking just listening to their complaints all the time. At some point, you got to say, like, dude, your solution's in the steps. Here's the directions that we follow, and you can get over all that shit. And are you going to do what's hard? Because it's easy to call your sponsor all the time and complain, but are you going to say, you know what, this time I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to talk to some pillars. I'm going to go find somebody at the meeting to work with. I'm going to at least going to go and shake somebody's hand. And I'm going to go try to be of service and do something different. And I'm going to do that every day this week or every second day or whatever the fuck it takes, right? Like, those are the things that we got to do to try to get over these phone calls to all these people always trying to solve our problems. And, oh, fuck, I need to do another inventory. I need to do another set of steps. No, man. There becomes a point where when somebody keeps coming to me over and over, I'm like, are you sponsoring? No, fucking sponsor. Why? Because it has sanity in it. It teaches you stuff that you can't learn any other way. So anyway, if he's sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. After doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. And as you start working with people, they will get better in the first few steps. Like in Jim's story and Fred's story in the chapter more about alcoholism, both those stories says all went well for a while. And in one of the stories, it said he made a beginning. And when you make a beginning and you do the first few steps, you do feel better and all does go well for a while. And then they start backing off and they're not calling you and they're not making their appointments and they're making excuses. And you know what? You can reach out and kind of prod them a little bit. But just like this says, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He shouldn't be pushed or prodded. So you got to kind of find that balance, because as new sponsors also, you do have to do some pushing and prodding in order to cut your teeth and fucking learn how to find your system. But you'll know if you listen and you ask God and you talk to your pillars, you'll know the answers and you'll know when to push and when to prod and when to not, and just let him fucking find his own path back to you or not. And he will get hurt some more if he goes back out. So that's kind of a given. If he thinks he can do the job some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his conscience. And a lot of guys will do that. They'll start doing the workout recovery plan where it's like, I'm working out, I'm working on my body. They'll go to yoga, they'll go to meditation, they'll do everything except this. You know what? If they think that that's the route, then encourage them. And all you really say when they are kind of going a different direction, you just say, my phone's always on if you ever need me again, kind of thing, right? Encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach which worked for us. But point out that we alcoholics have much in common, and that you would like to, in any case, be friendly and let it go at that. You know, be friendly, give them your number, say, I'll be here if you ever need me, and let it go at that. And that will happen. Don't be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another prospect. So as you're looking for these guys and you're going to the meetings and you kind of find a prospect and you kind of get your hopes up and you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is working. This guy's going to work with me. Well, sometimes they phase away, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Don't worry about it. That's going to happen. Search out another alcoholic and try again. That's why it's always important to have many lines in the water. You're always kind of throwing lines in the water because that's always going to happen. So you're always kind of fishing and you're reeling some in a little closer than others. And you throw another line in, but this one guy you've been working on for 3 or 4 weeks, he's closer to the shore and you might be able to start working with him, right? So it's really important to just meet people. Even if you're already stacked up as a sponsor, just keep saying, hey, how's it going to these guys? You know, introducing yourself and saying welcome and these kind of things. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you have to offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, they may soon become convinced that they cannot recover by themselves. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. That's really important, because if you just target one person and you just give all your time and you keep trying to save them, you're not saving them. And you're wasting valuable time where you could be serving other alcoholics. And that takes a bit to get there, but you follow these directions in the book, and that's the way that it goes. Don't spend too much time on one situation and deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to be happy. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half a dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work with them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. Suppose now you're making your second visit to a man. He has read this volume and says he is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. Having had the experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you are available if he wishes to make a decision and tell his story. And what that's saying is, let him know you're available if he wishes to make the decision to do the step 3, to do 1, 2, and 3, and tell his story, do the 5, right? Because as you're kind of grooming these guys, talking about the steps and, what step 3 is and what step 4 is and what step 5 is, and, the relief that you get and how important it was, like, as you build these conversations, hopefully they're getting hooked in and they're like, yeah, I'm willing to fucking try this, right? Wish to make the decision, tell a story, but do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else. And a lot of guys are going to bite on the hook and they will get you going and you will think that you're working with them. And then, like a good alcoholic, they just pick somebody else. And you'll expect it because it's going to happen. And then your hopes will be up and then they'll be down. And it's like, fuck. And then you're going to think, what am I doing wrong? Why did they not want to finish the steps with me? Why didn't they just keep going with me? You don't need to worry about that, because that's just part of the nature of these alcoholics, of us alcoholics. We have an alcoholic mind. Nothing's really good enough. And I'm always seeing something better, including sponsors. So you don't take it personally. And don't let it detract you from doing what we're talking about, going and searching out another one and trying again and trying again. Like I said, it probably took me fucking 50 guys to get one guy through the big book. I don't know if it was quite that many, but it probably was close. And then I started getting a couple guys through, and it took a lot of time to kind of start getting guys through the book. And that's why I always say, when you're new to sponsorship, you got to cut your teeth, man. You got to go through the shit. You got to go through the pain of learning what not to do and what to do, and learning about the disease and watching guys die. And it's all for the good at the end of the day. He may be broke and homeless. If he is, you might try to help him about getting a job or giving him a little financial assistance. But you should not deprive your family or creditors of money they should have. Perhaps you will want to take the man into your home for a few days. But you better be sure to use discretion. Be certain he will be welcomed by your family and that he is not trying to impose upon you for money, connections, or shelter. Permit that and you'll only harm him. So there's a balance for all that, right? Like for me, I don't mind helping a guy with shelter or even $20 or $40 or whatever it is. You can get a real good read on people when they really want to help themselves, right? Like I've seen guys go to any length to fucking really want to stay sober. And I'm willing to do whatever the fuck it takes, including, right, fucking letting them stay on my fucking floor on a big mattress at my house, right? And fucking do whatever, man, right? because you can see it. And that's no guarantee that they're going to stay sober, but you can get an idea, right? And like, I'm going to tell you guys a bit of a story here. So this year, I've known somebody for a number of years, and they've been in the program, and they think they work the program. And I've taken calls from them for fucking years, and it's always the same shit. I pick up the phone, I'm like, hello. And then they just bitch about their fucking life, and they bitch about everybody, and they complain. And I don't even have a chance to even get a word in. So I'm just kind of there going, holy shit. Yeah. Yeah. Fucking 15, 20 minutes of them just fucking spewing out self and thinking they're fucking helping all these people, and everyone's fucking them and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, well, I got to go. So thanks for the call. And I'm just like, okay, thanks. Bye. And I didn't even say a word. Right. And this has happened so many times. And then, we kind of get down the road on this, and the guys that really know me, you know that I fucking try my best, and I do help a lot of people, and I try to help them anyway, right? But I also, at some point, I'm not going to just fucking nurse your fucking bullshit. At some point, if you really come to me, I'm going to tell you the fucking truth. The thing about kind of how it goes, someone sent me a meme, and it's like, everyone likes what you have to say until you say it to them, then you're a fucking asshole, right? So, this person calls me and they want me to help them, their partner in this relationship. And I said, no, I'm not helping him. He hasn't fucking asked me for help. I'm not just going to help him because you tell me to. And she starts fucking tearing strips off me. You say that you help people. You don't fucking help anyone. I help people. And I'm just like, all the people you help, you have a fucking resentment against. Like, there's a way to do this where you will fucking not be carrying the alcoholic on your back and not living this helping way with the best of intention and fucking still fighting everyone or everything. This book is fucking gold. It takes and eliminates all of the bullshit, and it allows you to have an excuse of how you're fucking sponsoring. So it's not on you. It's not your opinion. And you can't argue the book. And if you're in the book and you follow what's here, you can always say, like the book tells me, I'm fucking not supposed to nurse your sprees, and I'm not supposed to do this. And I don't want to do that. And until like you take responsibility for your own journey, fucking, I don't really know what to do. So that's what that paragraph reminded me of. Permit that, and you only harm them. You will be making it possible for him to be insincere to himself and his own willingness to recover and take responsibility for his own life. And also, if he's got family and kids, he can't take responsibility for the kids and the family or anybody, right? At work today, we were talking, and like at work, they do things differently, right? And it's almost like I gotta like kind of go against how I normally operate in sponsorship, because I do the same thing at work, but we're supposed to like give these people all the stuff that they want in a sense, and like really help them. Like, okay, they're going to lose their house and they're going to lose their job. And like, so we're scrambling to help them keep everything afloat so they don't lose it. And I'm sitting here in the background going, well, maybe they need to lose it. Maybe they need to not have anywhere to go. Maybe they need to burn all their bridges. And like, it's much more effective when you burn all your bridges and you have nowhere to go and you're in utter desperation and you're willing to fucking do anything. You become sincere with your own path, right? So it's interesting to kind of see the two sides that I work with. You may be aiding in his destruction rather than his recovery. I love this next paragraph. Never avoid these responsibilities. That's a double underline right there. That's a statement. Never avoid these responsibilities. What responsibilities? Helping others, man. But be sure you are doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough, period. You have to act a good Samaritan every day if need be. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleeps, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money, your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to the police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife may say she's sometimes neglected. A drunk may smash all your furniture in the home or burn your matches. You may have to fight with him if he is violent. Sometimes you will have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. Another time you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally you will have to meet such conditions. So back to the top. Never avoid these responsibilities. There's a direction, clear cut. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Remember way back when we first started this big book study and we read the doctor's opinion, and on the first page, very first page of the doctor's opinion, I really highlighted something. I'm going to reread it. It said, as part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to others, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis, the foundation of this rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. So here we are on the very first page of the solution of my life, telling me that I must carry this message to help others, impressing upon them they must do likewise with still others. And that it's the foundation of this whole fellowship, of this whole program, of this way of life. And then way back, almost at the end of the first 103 pages of our 12 steps, it's saying the exact same thing again. So helping others is the foundation stone of our recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. And when you think about your own recovery, or you look at other people's recovery as an observational perspective, not as a judgmental perspective. Watch the people who don't help others or do any kind of service and who do a kindly act once in a while. Typically that kindly act once in a while, they will want the validation and the recognition for the kindly act that they do. But remember, back in the doctor's opinion again, we work out our solution on the spiritual and altruistic plane. Through the work in this program and through sponsorship, the spiritual is a given and it comes no matter what. And through the altruistic actions that at first aren't altruistic, when I first started sponsoring, I did not sponsor altruistically. I was very ego-driven when I first started sponsoring. And that's why I always say it doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start. So the act of altruism that I thought was altruism was all based in self. And that's fine. You got to start somewhere. It's kind of like love and tolerance is our code, but it might have to start with love and hate, love and tolerate, right? It's kind of the same line. You start anyway, you start somewhere with the altruistic action, and sponsorship's a really good way to build altruism. And at some point you will, become altruistic for the most part. It's not always going to be altruistic, but more times than not, it will be. I just see Renelle posted something. I'm going to read it. Oh, Jessica. So where's the line drawn between helping someone through sponsorship and not carrying someone through or enabling violence or disturbed behavior? Keep my own recovery environment safe. A lot of these examples on 97, I couldn't see myself being up to doing. Well, as you work through your own recovery, I've often said it like this: God's going to give you exactly what you need in your life. God knows where you're broken, so he's going to present the challenges and the circumstances and the people exactly in front of you so that you are able to navigate your own challenges and brokenness and lean on God to get through it. So the chances are that whatever is placed in your path, you will be able to handle. And some of these things that are on this list, you won't even have to handle. Then, like, what I also want to emphasize on this paragraph is this is what they had to do in 1939 to get sober and stay sober. All we got to do is go to a fucking meeting and put my hand up. I'm a sponsor. And we don't got to deal with any of this shit. So if we don't got to deal with almost any of this shit and we're still fucking backing off of it, what the fuck are we talking about? Right? These guys had to do this stuff. And you don't have to deal with the violence. Like I've sponsored lots of people. I've dealt with a little bit of violence, but I've seen it. I haven't dealt with it. I've never had the experience of anyone being violent to me. You know, I've been to sanitariums, I've been to jails, I've been to hospitals, I've done that kind of thing, but that's willing. I want to go there. And it's a safe environment. These people are watched by the security or whatever. Like, and the thing about it is it's going to come up on one of these other pages. And it's talking about your job is to be at a place where you can be of maximum usefulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep in the firing line of life with these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. I believe that. I believe that paragraph. And when COVID kicked in and everyone was in a panic, I didn't fucking panic. Why? Because I believed in this paragraph, and I believe as long as I'm fucking on the firing line of life with God and I'm there to serve God and help his kids, he's going to fucking keep me unharmed. And he did. So I guess it's all dependent on your level of trust and faith in your God when you're dealing with these alcoholics and what they're going to present to you. So what does it take? You may have the loss of many nights' sleep. I know I have. Great interference to your pleasures. That's the biggest one that we fucking don't want interference to. Oh, I'm out at the hockey game, or I'm out here and I'm out doing this. Like sometimes we got to like sacrifice certain pleasures of ours to be of service to somebody. It's just a fact. Interruptions to your business. It's a fact. It might mean sharing your money or your home. Counseling frantic wives, relatives, innumerable trips to the police court, sanitariums, hospitals, and jails, asylums. So I've counseled many frantic family members. And all you can really do is educate them on the illness. Can't really do much. You can listen to them, but you have to educate even family members on the illness. If the family members understand the illness, they can better help the alcoholic who you're working with. So you may have to fight with him. He is violent. That's probably not going to happen. I've never experienced it. I've hardly ever heard of it. So occasionally you're going to have to meet some of these occasions or conditions. So I guess really what I want to highlight out of this paragraph is the top portion. That's what it takes. Don't avoid it. Kindly act once in a while isn't enough. And like, we don't have to go through the shit that they used to have to go through. We got it really, really easy. And if we're not willing to take that easy way that we have, like, what are we really talking about? Right? So we seldom allow an alcoholic to live in our homes for a long time. It is not good for him. And it sometimes creates serious complications in the family. It's not likely you're going to have an alcoholic live in your home. So don't worry about it. Unless you're living with an alcoholic who you won't kick out because you're enabling him. Though an alcoholic does not respond, there is no reason why you should neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly to them. The family should be offered your way of life. Should they accept the spiritual principles, there is much better chance the head of the family will recover. And even though he continues to drink, the family will find life more bearable. So again, this book was written, suggested for the family also. And it's saying, you know, give them the steps, give them the ability to learn how to navigate life and see where they're at fault and make their own amends and find their own truth so they can live at least a better life if they have to with an alcoholic. But remember, it was written in 1939, so some of this doesn't apply. For the type of alcoholic who is able and willing to get well, little charity in the ordinary sense of the word is needed or wanted. That's a huge, huge, huge barometer. For the alcoholic who really wants to get well, little charity in the ordinary sense of the word is needed or wanted. The guy who really wants this, you don't got to give him much. You know, he wants it. The men who cry for money and shelter before conquering alcohol are on the wrong fucking track. I don't know how many guys have said, I just need a job. I just need to fix my family. I just. And that's another thing at work that we do at work is we just try to help them get a job and keep a job. But that's not the fucking solution. And so many of the guys I try to help at work and in the program, they just think that the job is the solution. It fucking doesn't work, man. Men who cry for money and shelter and jobs before conquering alcohol are on the wrong track. That's why I say, oh, you're going to lose your job? Dude, you probably need to lose your job. Yet we do go to great extremes to provide each other with these very things when such action is warranted. So we can do these things when your own intuition is like clear and you can see and read the person and you fucking trust that, yeah, okay, I think you are on the right track. I'll help you get a job, bro. This may seem inconsistent, but we think it is not. It is not the matter of giving that is the question, but it's how and when to give. Double underline that shit. It's not the matter of helping that's the question. It's when and how. So many people help, but at the wrong times in the wrong way. And that's what we call carrying the alcoholic on our back. It's not a matter of giving or helping that's in question here at all. It's a matter of how and when. That's what makes the difference. And as you work sponsoring and you work your own program of recovery and you're growing and you're relinquishing defects, you come to this place where you know, man, you know how to help. And that's what that first 15 sponsees is teaching you. It's teaching you how to cut your teeth in this question. And then the next 15 really starts sharpening your tools for the rest of your sponsorship. And as you start doing this, you'll know when and how to help. And you'll still make mistakes as you go along, but you're not making mistakes because you're growing and learning. So anyway, it's not a matter of giving, that's the question, but when and how to give. That makes the difference between failure and success. The minute we put our work on the service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. What that means is, if your work is on the service plane and you keep helping the person do everything, he was reliant on you, not God. And so for me as a sponsor, a lot of times I get people who will ask me to sponsor them, and they actually, I believe, and I've been told, they make me God. I'm okay with that because I've learned how to navigate that relationship. Because I know that if they rely on me, they're as good as drunk. But what I've learned through the numbers of guys that I've sponsored is I am able over time to get them in touch with their God because I know that I can't be God. So I will start separating myself at certain aspects of the steps, and I will get them to get on with their pillars and start building these relationships. And eventually they're on their own and they have a good relationship with God. So you really got to be careful of not over helping them. And part of this is like, okay, they don't have a car and you have a car. They live in fucking Tuscany and you live in South Calgary. You're going to meet in the middle. Oh, you feel sorry for them because they don't have a car and they're struggling and they're an alcoholic and blah, blah, blah. So you drive to Tuscany every week to go meet them and pick them up. No, man, you don't go pick them up every week. You fucking say, I'll meet you downtown at the wherever, at the coffee shop, and he catches the fucking train. Because someone who wants to get well, little chair in the ordinary sense is needed or wanted. He doesn't give a fuck. He's meeting you, man. And he's learning humility and you're learning boundaries. And how this can morph into something different is, okay, this guy's met me 6 times in a row. He's caught the train and fucking did what he needed to do. You know what, bro? I'm going to give you a ride home tonight. Then you give him a ride home. Then you meet him the next week. Then you don't give him a ride home. And then maybe the next week you go pick him up. And then what next week you don't pick him up or give him a ride home. You know what I'm saying? So you got to like keep this stuff mindful as you're working with guys, because they'll want to do this. And like, where's Shane? Shane, this guy, Shane. Okay. And I know other people, they'll go anywhere on the fucking bus. They'll walk for fucking 10 kilometers to get to their fucking meeting or to their sponsor and do what they got to do because they know their life's on the line. And like, when you got that kind of willingness, man, you're going to fucking get this shit. So that's what that line is saying. Shane, you got any comments on that since I brought your name into it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I learned that early on. I just did another set of steps 6 months ago, and I'm a few years around and sponsoring, and I had to bus 10-hour day working, bus 4 hours there and back to work, and then I had to bus an hour or two fucking to and from to do it to see my sponsor. I'm still doing it to this day after a handful of years of being around doing this program. And I do it because, like you just said, Bill, I have to, because I want to, because this is what God has shown me today, that's going to allow me to be a mainstream of this life. And I'll do it until I get my license in a few months, and then I'll drive, and then I'll continue doing it because I have to.
Thanks, bro. And another one on the screen that sticks out to me is Ian. I know Ian from, from around. And this guy is so willing to do what the fuck it took. And he was already way more willing before I met him. But when I met him, he was in some pain and he was like, I fucking need to get out of my situation. I need to fucking stay sober. I'm willing to do what the fuck ever. And my phone was ringing off the hook with him saying, fucking dude, help me out a bit, help me out. And I knew that, and I knew he had time behind him. And so that's what I tried to do. At least I could do whatever I could do, but he's done it all since, right? And go to work and make the money and live way the fuck out west. And like, he's another guy that I know for sure that'll go to any length and do what it fucking takes. And that's what it takes, right? And teaching the people that we're working with, like, and sharing that story, because you guys are going to run into the sponsees that are be like, oh, fuck, man, I got to fucking take the bus from Simon House to downtown, fucking meet my sponsor. And you're the sponsor. And you're going to be like, fuck you, bro. I had to take the fucking bus and fucking ride a horse and uphill both ways to fucking get here. Like fucking shut up, right? So anyway, let's keep going. So the minute we put our work on a service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. And always we direct him to God. He clamors for this and that, claiming he cannot master alcohol till his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Bullshit. Some of us have taken some very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence upon God. And sometimes the job is in the way of you not drinking. Sometimes the wife gets in the way of you not drinking. So I always say, fucking, how do you know what's best for you, bro? Maybe that job is keeping you away from actually getting recovery. And oftentimes that's the case, because that job has so many ideas tied into it, and it won't allow him to put up the white flag and say, fuck it, I don't have an answer anymore. Austin W down there, he talks about, I think it's Austin, he talks about having no more answers. I didn't have any more answers, man. And when you can get to that point where you have no answers, if you still got a job, you got some answers, man. You still got the wife, you got some answers. Once you don't have anything, for me, like I lost my wife, my family, I lost my business. I was fucking destitute. I had no answers. And I actually needed that. And if I would have saved my house or my fucking a few bucks and, you know, maybe my family, I'd probably maybe be sober, but I'd be fucking miserable because I never would have fucking done the work here. So I look at my experience where I had to lose it all as the greatest part of my journey, because I was able to find something better out of that darkness. And that's kind of what some of these guys are missing out on when they try to hold on to everything. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man. Love those words. Think about those words. Burn the consciousness into the idea of every man that he can get well regardless of fucking anyone. The only condition is that he trust in God and clean house. Do the work and seek a higher power. And you will get well. Burn it into their skull. Now the domestic problem. There may be divorce, separation, or strained relations. When your prospect has made such reparation as he can do to his family and has thoroughly explained to them the new principles by which he is living, he should proceed to put those principles into action at home. That is, if he is lucky enough to have a home. Though his family might be at fault in many respects, he should not be concerned about that. He should concentrate on his own spiritual demonstration. Argument and fault finding are to be avoided like the plague. So as a sponsor, and my buddy Jesse gets a lot of these guys who are, you know, married or in relationships and kids and younger people. And he tells them like this, he guides them like this: argument and fact finding, you avoid it like the plague. You go to your house where your family is and you honor that as a gift. And you treat your kids and your wife like you've never treated them before. And when the grass needs to be mowed, you're mowing the grass. When the kids need to go to soccer, you're taking them to soccer. When your wife wants to drive to get her nails done, you're driving her to get her nails done. Like, it's kind of like an overcompensation in a sense, but not in a selfish way. So in many homes, this is a difficult thing to do. It must be done if any results are to be expected. If persisted for a few months or a couple years, the effect on a man's family is sure to be great. The most incompatible people discover that they have a basis which they can meet. Little by little, the family may see their own defects and admit them. These can be discussed in an atmosphere of helpfulness and friendliness. Normally, okay? Normally. And that goes for more than just like your intimate partner. Sometimes we have other family members and we have other situations which we live in. A lot of times, other people don't understand the illness and other people aren't fucking seeking God. Or if they are, they just maybe smudge and do a couple things and they're still the same person all the time. They're not trying to change, and they can't change because you can't really change on your own anyway. So you really got to like honor your own self and go, is this environment consistent with what I want to live in? And you may have the ability to change the situation by your own spiritual principles and the way you live, depending on their defects and how they are. And so you might even be able to be a great influence in that home, or you might not be. So you really got to like ask yourself the questions that are hard. And sometimes it's hard to fucking like walk away from family, but it's a necessary thing that sometimes we have to do. I've done it. I haven't been in touch with my brother for a long time, and he's actually in Calgary right now, and I'm hoping that he's going to try to get sober in treatment. But we've had that relationship because I can't have him in my life. And I want him in my life. But I can want him, and I do want him, but I can't have him. And I accept that. And the thing is this disease kills, and he's in active addiction, and who knows what's going to happen with him. I hope he finds the solution and turns it around, right? But I know that even my closest brother, who you would think I might have a little influence over, I haven't been able to have any influence over him. But my daughters, on the other hand, I have had a lot of influence over. So, just a little insight there. After they have seen tangible results, the family will perhaps want to go along, like my daughters. These things will come to pass naturally and in good time, provided, however, the alcoholic continues to demonstrate that he can be sober, considerate, and helpful, regardless of what anyone says or does. So I'm going to stop there for a second. I'm going to bring up a spot in step 9. There is a long period of reconstruction ahead. A mumbling of "I'm sorry" will not fit the bill. The long period of reconstruction ahead for us isn't that we go fix all these relationships. You let God fix you, build with you, do with you as he will. And then you will allow these relationships to organically mend themselves properly. Exactly like what this says. Things will come to pass naturally and in good time. And sometimes good time might not be a fucking couple years. Maybe good time is fucking 5 or 10 years. We're on God's time here. However, the alcohol continues to demonstrate that he can be sober, considerate, consistent, persistent, and helpful, regardless of what anyone says or does. And the other thing about family is they're going to see you change and they're going to get fucking judgmental. They're going to say, "Oh, you're better than us now. Oh, you're like this." And they're so used to you being a certain way. To watch you change is really painful for them because they're used to your defects. My family was used to my defects and the way I was. And when I started changing, they got resentful at the change. But over time, just like this said, that passed naturally and it worked out. Of course, we will fall much below this standard many times, but we must try to repair the damage immediately, lest we pay the penalty by the spree. So I'm going to contradict that. Don't go repair the damage. Always go to God, go to your pillars, and fucking go into whatever the situation that needs reparation with God-centered guidance and words. Okay. If there be a divorce or separation, there should be no undue haste for the couple to get together. The man should be sure of his recovery. The wife should fully understand his new way of life, and their old relationship is to be resumed. If the old relationship is to be resumed, it must be on a better basis since the former did not work. That's why the gentleman or the wife who comes back into the family, they have to have a new foundation for their life. If they go in and continue to do what they've always done, they're going to get what they've always gotten. And here it says the wife should fully understand the new way of life. Today's world, the wife doesn't always fully understand your new way of life. Because you're coming in, now I got a sponsor, now I got to be away from the house at meetings, and now I got to get off work early. And, it doesn't go that smoothly. But the way that it can go smoothly is if you talk to her and you really are vulnerable. And if you guys are invested in a relationship, you got to hope for the best. But I'll tell you the truth. What I've seen happen most of the time is you got a man and woman living at a certain level of consciousness, and they're wrecking their marriage based on their defects. The guy's drinking's out of hand. The guy knows he needs help. The wife knows he needs help. Maybe the wife says, "I'm leaving you unless you go get help." So she'll send her husband, or the husband will send the wife to the program to get help. And they just think they have a drinking problem. So then they come here, they get a sponsor, and they do the steps. What ends up happening is that equal relationship where they were vibrating here. Now the person who's done the steps starts going like this, and his level of consciousness is rising. He's seeing life from a totally different perspective, and they actually grow apart. And they actually end up separating because the level of consciousness of the person who came into the program, who was the problem, he becomes way more wild than the person who kicked him into the program. And then the belief systems don't match anymore. So it's hard to keep a relationship going. And the wife in today's day ain't probably working any kind of steps. At least back then, it was suggested that the wife worked the steps So they had a chance. That nowadays, those chances, in my opinion, from what I've seen, they're pretty slim. This means a new attitude and spirit all around. Sometimes it's better. It is the best interest of all concerned that the couple remain apart. Obviously, no rule can be laid down. Let the alcohol continue his program day by day. When the time for living together has come, it will be apparent to both parties. Let no alcoholic say he cannot recover unless he has his family back. This just isn't so. So all you guys are going to sponsor somebody who had a man or woman who is going to say, I need my family back or I can't recover. Well, the book says something else. This isn't so. In some cases, the wife will never come back for one reason or another. Remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people. It is dependent upon his relationship with God. You know, in the chapter, there's a solution. It talks about self-knowledge will not fix us. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize. I'm going to steal that and I'm going to bring it here. Remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people, jobs, money, anything. It is dependent upon his relationship with God. That is a point I would love to emphasize and re-emphasize. Because once you can recover with God as the foundation, like step 3 says, you get reborn. You get to recreate your life, like it talks about in the doctor's opinion. Recreating your life comes through the relationship with God, but a lot of times you have to lose all of the other things that you thought life was. And like really promoting, like, dude, your life can be so good, because a lot of these people will fall into self-pity. So you got to try to like keep them motivated in a good way and take them to these lines and tell them. And then use other people in the program as examples of these lines and give them that hope that, okay, it might get better, right? We have seen men get well whose families have not returned at all. Mine didn't return. We have seen others slip when the family came back too soon. Okay, we are on 100, second paragraph. So this is kind of it. This is kind of like working with others in a nutshell. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. And think about what that's saying. It's saying we walk together in the path of spiritual progress, meaning taking away the ego and building more upon love. That's the spiritual progress that we're walking on. Not just, you know, catering to each other's bullshit and just being their friend. We're walking together for a purpose to produce a spiritual awakening for this gentleman so he can change his life. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances are. So again, I'm going to go back up a bit. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. And I could probably go to a number of people on this screen who persisted and they built their relationship with Creator or God, and they've relinquished a lot of these painful defects that take away the joy in our life. And they're like, wow, remarkable things have happened. And when I placed my life in the hands of God, it turned out way better than I could have expected. Like, that's just how it goes. And there's so many people that haven't had that experience in the program. And I think why is because of this line. Follow the dictates of your higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances are. What are the dictates of the higher power? To me, it's you working step 10 and showing your sponsees what step 10 is. And you think of the word dictates, it's like dictatorship. You know, follow the dictator, which is God. Abandon yourself to him utterly. The last line of step 7 talks about grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. And the word bidding means I now listen to you, somebody. Well, we're listening to God. I'm going to God and I'm listening to God. What do you want me to do? I want you to live in love, my son. I want you to only live in love. That's it. And when you look up the word bidding, there's a sub thing there and it says to surrender in an overly slavish way. And you look up the word slavish, it means without original thought or idea. We don't have our own thought or idea. We surrender in love and we fucking without reservation. And that's kind of what we're talking about, to follow the dictates of your higher power. Work your step 10, work in altruism, get to this point where you're surrendering in love more and more and more and more. And really what I'm saying is any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6, relinquishing the defects of character on all his faults without reservation repeatedly has indeed come a long way spiritually. And the without reservation is the key in that step 6, because as you learn how to do his bidding and you practice the step 10, you do his bidding as a dictate of the process of the 10, you will surrender over slavishly without your original thought or idea. Usually the original thought or idea is the reservation. And as you practice this, you will get to this place where you don't have the reservation most of the time, right? There's always desires that oppose the grace of God, like the book says. Okay, carry on. When working with a man and his family, you should take care not to participate in their quarrels. So when you're sponsoring somebody who's in a relationship, you don't get involved in their quarrels. It's really important because you will make a mess out of it. You focus on the person you're working with and you give them suggestions and you allow them to find the answers within themselves. And you give them all the data that they need to look at things differently so that they find that answer based in their authentic truth. That's the main thing. You may spoil your chance of being helpful if you do, but urge upon a man's family that he has been a very sick person and should be treated accordingly. You should warn against arousing resentment or jealousy. You should point out that his defects of character are not going to disappear overnight. Show them that he has entered into a period of growth and ask them to remember when they are impatient, the blessed fact of his sobriety. So again, we're talking about 1939. Not likely you're going to have that experience. But if you do, there you got some data. If you have been successful in solving your own domestic problems, tell the newcomer's family how that was accomplished. In this way, you can set them on the right track without becoming critical of them. The story of how you and your wife settled your difficulties is worth any amount of criticism. Assuming we are spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. And the caveat to that was assuming we're spiritually fit, not just sober. People have said to us that we must not go where liquor is served. We must not have it in our homes. We must shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes. We must not go into bars. Our friends must hide their bottles. If we go to their houses, we mustn't think or be reminded of alcohol at all. Well, alcohol and the symbols are all over our society. You know, in the world of mental health and addictions, they really focus on triggers. Many of us have probably been through these centers or these programs where we're to watch the triggers. The thing with the alcoholic is life's the trigger, okay? In the doctor's opinion, it talks about ideas, emotions, and attitudes that are the guiding force of these men. It's the ideas that I carry. It's the attitudes and it's the emotions that I run with. That is the trigger. And if I don't have a psychic change and I expose all those things and try to do something different with a willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6 on all of these ideas, emotions, and attitudes repeatedly, there's very little hope of my recovery. So at some point, like this says, our experience shows that that's not true. I can go anywhere. I can go to any situation and life's not triggering me to drink anymore. Why? Because I'm not avoiding things. I've dealt with it on the inside and my perspective of life has changed. So the ideas, emotions, and attitudes that used to take me to the drink every time, they don't take me there anymore. And that only comes through the help with God and working the steps, and especially step 10, 11, and 12. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There is something the matter with his spiritual status. And you're going to run into a lot of people out there who still have an alcoholic mind. And what does that look like? Looks like all the shit in your step 4. Resentment. Looks like judgment. Looks like terrible sex conduct. Looks like using women, using men. Looks like, money and fucking looks like a whole bunch of things. There is something the matter with his spiritual status. His only chance for sobriety would be someplace like the Greenland ice cap. And even there, an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. And we all know, we've tried the geological changes. We can go anywhere and we're still there. And we will always find a fucking substance to use. No matter where I went or what I did, I could always find the dope that I wanted to use. Always. So I have to change. Ask any woman who has sent her husband to a distant place on the theory that he would escape the alcohol problem. In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. If the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but he usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. So for you to shield yourself, really what you're resisting everything. Okay, I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm not going to go here. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to put myself in this new cage of self and avoid the world pretty much, because alcohol and drugs are everywhere. So you have to learn how to change yourself so that you can accept the things that are on the outside world. And when you just shield yourself or stand on guard, you're never really dealing with anything, because whatever you resist will always persist. And that goes for the substances, and that goes for your defects of character as well. And we usually wind up with a bigger explosion than ever. So I'm going to flip this to defects of character. If you avoid working on your anger, if you avoid working on your lust, and you keep pushing it down and suppressing it, you're in for a bigger explosion than ever. And at some point, just like the substance, you got to concede to your innermost self that you're fucked. And until you accept that and do something about it, delay is dangerous and rebellion may be fatal. Straight out of step 6. If you don't work on these things, the delay is dangerous. And rebellion, outright, no, I ain't fucking doing it, might fucking kill you. We have tried these methods, and these attempts to do the impossible have always failed. So our rule is not to avoid a place where there is drinking, if we have a legitimate reason for being there. And remember, we're at step 12 at this point, right? Where we've had a spiritual experience and we're working a solid program. This isn't what you do and rationalize your decision when you're on step 4 or step 3. At step 4 and step 3, we do avoid those places. I wouldn't tell my sponsee, oh yeah, go to the fucking bar, hang out there, dude, do whatever you need to do. No, you're on step fucking 3 or 4. Don't go there. Avoid that shit until until you're good, until your spiritual conditioning is fit. Then we can talk about that. That includes bars, nightclubs, dances, receptions, weddings, and even plain old whoopee parties. To a person who has experience with the alcoholic, this may seem like tempting providence, but it isn't. You will note that we made an important qualification. Therefore, ask yourself on each occasion, have I any good social or business or personal reason for going to this place? Or am I expecting to steal a little vicarious pleasure from the atmosphere of such places? If you answer these questions satisfactorily, you need not have any apprehension. Go or stay away, whichever seems the best. But be sure you are on solid spiritual ground before you start, and that your motive is thoroughly good. Do not think of what you will get out of the occasion. Think of what you can bring to it. But if you are on shaky ground, you had better work with another alcoholic instead. So it qualified it right there. Be sure you are on solid spiritual ground before you start, and that your motive in going is thoroughly good. And with the new alcoholic, the motive thing hasn't totally been extracted or understood. The good intention will mask the motive. So it's always best when you're new in that first year, whatever, and you're starting to navigate into these new areas, or your sponsee is, to give them the advice like, give me a call, talk to me about these things before you go. So you can ask the sponsee the questions that matter so that you can see his motive, because they often can't see it because they're driven by their own intention and they're blinded by self. I see there's a comment. What about like Boston Pizza or restaurant bar after the meeting, or dance with people from the meeting when you are early in the steps? Well, my advice is, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. If you're too early in the steps, it's really not a good idea. Wait till you're done your steps. The set of steps should take 3 or 4 months. It's not that long to wait, right? Get a good set of steps under your belt. Hang out with people that are doing this deal. Water finds its own level. Find that group of people that can support you and go visit them. And those people who you're going to go with, if you say, I don't think I'm ready, they're going to fucking agree with you. And they're going to let you go home. They're not going to say, oh, come on, man, just come on. No, man. They won't do that, hopefully. Think of what you can bring to it. Always think of what you can bring to any situation. Even like, so this last year, I think it was last year, the year before, I went to a roundup and I saw somebody there and they gave me a lot of anxiety, and it changed my whole mood at the roundup. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. So I left the roundup and I called a couple pillars and I was like, okay, this is the situation here. This is one of my ex-girlfriends. I was like, here's the situation. And Jesse, he's like, dude, just go be of service. Go bring something to this roundup. And then somebody asked me if I could start working the steps with them at the roundup. So I started talking to this person about the steps. I never ended up sponsoring them, but that kind of happened. And, that's how I know God knows what's going on in my life, right? But he told me to just bring something. Don't go there because you're coming to take from the roundup. You're coming to see, and, bring something. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. Why sit with a long face in places where there is drinking, sighing about the good old days? If it is a happy occasion, try to increase the pleasure of those there, just like I was saying. If a business occasion, go attend to your business enthusiastically. If you're with a person who wants to eat in the bar, by all means, go along. Let your friends know that they are not to change their habits on your account. At a proper time and place, explain to all your friends why alcohol disagrees with you. If you do this thoroughly, few people will ask you to drink. And there's good ways to do that. I actually got asked a question today. One of my sponsees called me and said that one of their sponsees is going out with some of their friends. And I opened the book to these pages and we read most of what we're reading right now. So I could say, okay, now you read this with her and you have the discussions that you need to have based on what we just read. While you were drinking, you were withdrawing from life little by little. Now you're getting back into the social life of this world. Don't start to withdraw again just because your friends drink liquor. Your job now is to be at the place where you can be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life with these motives and God will keep you unharmed. So that line sounds like maybe it's too extravagant. I don't believe so, right? My faith in trust in that line is, okay, if that's what you say, I'm going to fucking try to do that. So try to build on that. Many of us keep liquor in our homes. We often need to carry green recruits through severe hangover. Some of us still serve it to our friends, provided they are not alcoholic. But some of us think we should not serve liquor to anyone. We never argue this question. We feel that each family, in the light of their own circumstances, ought to decide for themselves. And that's your choice. If you have a home where you don't want alcohol, then that's your choice. If you have a home where you have alcohol and you want to serve it to your guests, then that's your choice. Like, I have no problem serving alcohol to my friends and guests. I don't have any here, but I have no problem like doing that, right? My home isn't alcoholic free. If I have a little party here with like my ex-wife and my kids or whoever, and they want to bring some drinks, I'm not going to say no, right? But I'm not going to be drinking here with a bunch of dudes on a Friday after work either, right? We are careful never to show intolerance or hatred of drinking as an institution. Experience shows that such an attitude is not helpful to anyone. Every new alcoholic looks for the spirit among us and is immensely relieved when he finds we are not witch burners. A spirit of intolerance might repel alcoholics whose lives could have been saved had it not been for such stupidity. We would not even do the cause of temperate drinking any good, for not one drinker in 1,000 likes to be told about anything about alcohol to one who hates it, from one who hates it. Someday we hope Alcoholics Anonymous will help the public to better realization of the gravity of the alcoholic problem. But we shall be of little use if our attitude is one of bitterness or hostility. Drinkers will not stand for it. After all, our problems were of our own making. The bottles were only a symbol. Besides, we have stopped fighting anyone or anything. So I just want to touch before I end this. Someday we hope Alcoholics Anonymous will help the public to better realization of the gravity of the alcoholic problem. So my belief is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous describes the alcoholic better than any other literature or any other method out there. And in my experience, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous has the solution that works better than any other solution. So someday we hope Alcoholics Anonymous will help the public to better understand realization the gravity of the alcoholic problem. The alcoholic problem is based on the defective character and the ideas, emotions, and attitudes that drive us to be powerless, and we need the relief from that. And we don't have the power of choice in that first drink when we've crossed the line and we have an allergy. So what I've been doing in my life a lot in the last year or two is I'm trying to educate First Nations communities on this disease, like as I know it. Where I work, I try to do that, but they have the mental health aspect and CBT way of doing things. So it's a real uphill battle, but you know, slowly but surely, I know that I'm doing my little part to help try to bring the message of this book into all my little activities that I do. And when people clue in, and people like mental health experts too, I'll explain all the shit I know. And they're like, holy fuck, I never really knew that, because they're learning it all out of a book. They're not learning it through practical experience. So I implore you to work with alcoholics. Learn about the illness. Learn about the mental blank spots in the defective character. Learn about our ideas, emotions, and attitudes. Build that compassion with your fellow alcoholic. See how the psyche actually works. Tie it back to the instincts of sex relation, emotional, material security, and companionship. See how these instincts drive our lives powerfully, blindly, and subtly. And we actually don't really run our lives for the most part. The selfish, self-centered instincts do. But we have to expose the top layers of them before we can ever get down to the roots. Dale, go ahead, bro.
I just have a quick question because I just got through the step 11 stuff, but I heard a speaker the other day and he was saying something along the lines like traction rather than promotion is our public relations policy. It's not our 12-step policy. What is the best way, or like for somebody who was looking for sponsees, can you just say something about that of how to like do that? You know what I mean? Or like, is it just like going to meetings and talking to people that are new, or what's the, like, what do you, can you just say something about that?
Yeah, the best way to get sponsees for us is to go to meetings, right? Because that's where the fishing holes are. And you find specific meetings where you know there's more newcomers than others. There's a lot of suburban meetings that get one newcomer a year or whatever. Those aren't the ones, if you really want to sponsor, those aren't the ones to go to. You want to go to some inner city meetings or go to some treatment center meetings and go to where the treatment centers are going. And like the other thing is you got to like start organically and look for these guys. Okay, there's the Simon House van, there's this van, there's that van. And now you're in the meeting and you're just walking by rows of guys and you're saying, hey guys, welcome, welcome. You're just saying hello. And what it does is it takes your selfish, anxious apartness away, and it gives you some confidence to just be okay with being okay. And you're welcoming guys that you don't even know how much gratitude they have with just somebody saying hi. And maybe 10 times down the road, 10 meetings later, you're having a chat with one of them. Maybe it's 10, 15 meetings, but you start building these relationships, and maybe it's 2 months later and you run into one of those guys somewhere else at another meeting and you're like, hey man, and now you've built this. But it takes time, right? Really takes time. And the other thing I'll say is don't go in, don't get the sponsee on like that. Just say, you know what, bro, if you want my name and number and you want someone to show you the ropes or go to some meetings with you, here's my number. Like showing you the ropes is the best thing you can say to some of these guys. I'll just show you the ropes if you want to learn. Because some of the guys want to know the ropes, but they're not ready to ask. And if you just leave it like really vague like that, they'll call you and say, yeah, dude, show me the ropes. And it's been one of the greatest things that I've used for snagging guys early. Shane.
Hey, Bill. Hey, everybody. So I really got touched on the ideas, the emotions, the attitudes, these fucked up things. I truly believe that these are really the true crux of my problems. Question is what steps and what steps are the best for me to battle and to unearth and to learn and to fucking navigate those.
The ideas, emotions, and attitudes.
Yeah.
And the instincts.
Yeah.
Okay, if you consistently do regular sets of steps like every 2 years, after the first year we always focus on the fourth column. And it's what's my part? What did I do? But as you move through different sets of steps, the third column becomes more important. So you got to, and the third column is typically based in fear. So the fear inventory will reveal what the third column is actually trying to tell you. So the third column and the fears inventory together are really beneficial. And you take the fear inventory and you go to the sex conduct, and where was I selfish, inconsiderate, or dishonest? You can also look at the fears in there. But also, as you work the step 10, as you're encountering life on life's terms on moment by moment basis, we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So when they crop up, you ask God to remove it at once. You discuss them with someone immediately. You make amends quickly. If you've harmed anyone, okay, great. But there's a point where you can relieve yourself of the immediate issue in that moment, but then you will notice patterns of the same shit coming up that you're trying to go to this process for. And if you keep going to that process and you keep sweeping it aside without actually identifying the pattern, then you're going to struggle with it. What you resist persists. So at some point, you got to take the pattern and you got to go back to step 4. You got to put it in the columns again. And you got to rehash it with your God-centered 12-step pillar. You got to get re-willing. And you got to go to prayer and meditation, thought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for his knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry out step 6 and 7. Maybe it's the power to carry out step 4, 5, 6, and 7. And really asking God to relieve you of whatever it is but you might misconstrue that life's just kind of hard right now. Well, the lesson's in the hard, right? So it'll reveal itself if you're looking for it to be revealed. And the other thing is through sponsorship, you fucking will see all that shit in them and you will fucking see it in yourself. You'll build compassion for them because I didn't go through the step 11 and the 12 and 12, But there's an important thing that I wanted to go through, but I didn't. The step 11 prayer. When you look at the step 11 prayer, it says Lord once, and then it goes through all these things. Then it says Lord again and gives you a few more things. The first Lord and the items under that, those are all in you. And one of them is where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is discord, let me bring harmony. Where there is darkness, may I bring light. That's all in you. So as you root that shit out of you, then after the second Lord, let me be loved rather than, let me love rather than be loved. Let me forgive rather than be forgiven. You can bring those things out once you work on the channel. Make me a channel. And you work on those things in the first 2/3 of the step 11 prayer. Jess?
Yeah, sorry, I just have a quick question. So like, so say like, okay, I've never sponsored before, but I'm like close to doing that. And so what if I have or get somebody who is like more than one addiction? Like, so say whatever, like they're addicted to drugs and or both alcohol, but then they have like other addictions that aren't substance related. Like we just read on page 101 that like, if you don't if they shield himself, he may be succeed for a time, but usually winds up with a bigger explosion. So are you dealing with like all of their addictions if there's multiple all at once, or are you just focusing mainly on alcohol and then
You're focusing on the substance. So whether it's drugs or alcohol doesn't matter. First time through the steps, you just focus on the substance. That's it. As a sponsor, as you get to know them over time, you can focus on the root of the problem or the defects at least. But first time through, substance. And the thing about this big book study is actually not really meant for new people. So that's a good question. And sometimes I forget, right? Because I could easily go through this book just on a substance and I wouldn't say half the shit that I say in this big book study. I would just read the material. I'd focus on the substance. I wouldn't talk about the defective character hardly at all. I would a little bit, maybe at step 6 and step 4 and 5. But through your first sponsorship, you just focus on the substance and keep it really simple. Don't complicate it. So I just want to say thank you all for everyone that's been here from the start and people who have just come when they could. I really love doing these things. That's why I show up. And I fucking really love people like changing their lives. And people ask me all the time, what inspires you? Fucking people inspire me. Like fucking, you know, Ian inspires me and Julie inspires me and Moria from Ontario, who's got time and inspires me, and Stefan, who I've never met in person, but I think he's been here in my 3rd or 4th fucking study, right? Like he's been here so many times, right? And like, fuck, I just love it, right? And I just see the change in people. So fucking kudos to you guys and keep inspiring me.